Hey everyone, I'm going to be speaking with Brittany Rogers of Be the Change. Let's see.
Hey,
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I forgot to post before we were getting on because I had such a busy day.
I understand.
So we might just be chatting with each other, but I'm going to post the live to the page.
Okay.
Well, it's nice to meet you. I'm
It's
Jasmine. Um, I started Hints of Jazz in 2017, and I was interviewing Black-owned businesses, entrepreneurs, and artists and stuff like that. And I had like taken a break during COVID, and so like I decided like what I really cared about was like making like the things that like we don't talk about, making them accessible. I grew up in the inner city and stuff like that, and like the education and things that I learned and some of the things that I went through might have gone a different way if I had knew
mm-hmm.
things that just existed, like therapy. With that being said, Miss Brittany Rogers of Be the Change, you just want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do and stuff like that.
Okay. So I'm Brittany. I'm a therapist. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor and a certified alcohol and drug counselor. I've been working in mental health since about 2014. Um, and pretty much my day to day looks like I do therapy in private practice with individual clients and couples. And then I have my own business, which is the Change Therapeutic Services, and pretty much I created that business to be able to meet needs of the community and other people who didn't maybe have insurance, people like entrepreneurs who often have to pay out of pocket for things, and I it more accessible and affordable for them to be able to receive services. And so, through my business, Be the Change Therapeutic Services, I pretty much do life coaching as like a loophole to traditional therapy where you're getting the same service. But I'm charging you a cheaper fee to be able to do that. I offer workshops, consultations with businesses and organizations who are looking to make their environments or their approach more mental health friendly, couples mediation, speaking engagements, all of those sorts of things. And that's pretty much what my goal has been, is to kind of normalize therapy in the Black community, open up safe spaces for us to be able to talk about mental health.
And I think that's so dope because it's just so important, like you said, like be the change. Like we have a lot of things that like we don't like or doesn't like, just stuff that like people just don't know about, but like like taking initiative, it takes a lot to take initiative. And so congratulations, just for all your accomplishments, and like thank you for serving the community and just helping everybody out. I think that's super dope.
Thank you. Thank you.
So what made you want to be a therapist and stuff like that?
So it's something that I've always wanted to do. Since I was in high school, I think I was number one, always the friend that like people came to like talk to or like tell stuff to. And I took a lot of pride in that. And then I became really interested in mental health without really knowing the words mental health, without having the language. But I was always interested in like why we do the things that we do, behavior and mental and emotional connections. And I remember watching TV because back then, we had a lot of like therapist shows, like you had Dr. Phil, and I was an avid Teen Mom watcher, so I would see like Dr. Drew on there, and I'm like, yeah, that's what I want. I want to sit and talk to people like that. So it was after that where I obviously kind of knew next step was like a degree in psychology when I was going to undergrad. But it wasn't until I was in undergrad where I really started to understand and even do my own research to know like what's the difference between a social worker, what's the difference between a psychologist, a psychiatrist, and a therapist, and finding which one I felt like was going to align with what I wanted to do. Because a lot of psychology programs, like after that, it kind of sets you up to go into uh, research. And I was like, I don't really want to do research. Like, I want to talk to people. So how do I
Yeah.
like from like psychology? And then I learned, I was like, oh, it's a counseling program. So when I was an undergrad, the Chicago School of Professional Psychology came to do a fair. You know, we had like graduate school fairs and stuff. And I remember reading through like their pamphlets and stuff. And I was like, yes, this is it. This is what I want to do. This is the path. So and I had a great advisor in college who I was like, tell me how to get here. And he kind of laid it out as far as like, you go and get a master's in counseling and then you go and get a license. And so he really kind of gave me the blueprint to be able to um, just get to where I really wanted to go.
And that's cool. So, did what is the difference when you said that? Like, when you decided, like, which one did you want to do? What led to the decision, and what is the difference between them? Because I think people get certain words flipped around and stuff like that.
Yeah. So um, depending on actually what you want to do, some things align and some things don't. So, for people who go and pursue social work, now they do get a different component of education as far as, I want to say, like social issues, being able to connect people with resources, that sort of thing. However, a lot of people who go into social work also want to do therapy. So it's similar to counseling where you can pretty much end up in that at that end goal with the lot as long as you get the licenses that you need. So having a master's in social work and a master's in counseling are pretty closely aligned. You know, social work people, they go and get a licensed clinical social worker, which allows them to do therapy on their own, and LCPC, which I explained
Okay.
what my credentials stand for earlier. I will say most of the time, because social workers have like their own like union sort of thing, uh,
Mm-hmm.
they end up getting a bit more opportunity. So a lot of people will ask like, well, would you go into social work or would you go into counseling? And I love my counseling program, but as far as job opportunities, like the ability to really work in hospitals and that sort of thing, social work does end up giving people more opportunities as far as job choices and careers go. Psychiatry is the study of medicine as it relates to mental health. So psychiatry,
Okay. I didn't know that.
yeah. So again, people use a lot of these words interchangeably, but psychiatrists are your medication people. So as a counselor, I do not prescribe medication. I do not have the scope to do that or the education to do that. Your psychiatrist is who goes to get a doctorate in psychiatry and they get the green light to be able to prescribe medications to people. Um, Now, I rarely ever see psychiatrists also do counseling. It kind of makes a little sense because they just kind of go through like a questionnaire as far as like what are your symptoms, and doctor, they're going to take your symptoms and they're going to figure out, okay, this is what I think you need to treat those symptoms. Um,
Okay.
um, Psychologists, sometimes people use that word once they've so another reason why a person would get a is not necessarily a PhD in psychology, which people can get, but you can also get a doctorate of psychology, which is a PsyD. A PsyD is really people who want to teach at the graduate or under, I think you don't even need it at the undergraduate level, but more so at the graduate level. um,
Okay.
and so it allows them to do more stuff in education, and have those credentials. Trying to think if I missed anything else. And then like psychotherapists, those words are like interchangeable for therapists. Like it just what you like to call yourself. Like technically, I'm a counselor, but the word therapist is interchangeable as far.
Okay.
social work or counseling. Like, it's just a label.
Oh, okay. So now all of that, and then we're talking about it relating to the Black community. So, what is your job like? Are your clientele mostly Black?
Yes. And it wasn't always that way when I was working in more traditional mental health spaces, like the job that I left before I went into private practice full time. That space worked with a lot of Caucasian clients. We would get a sprinkle of Black and Hispanics every now and then. But it was mainly Caucasian clients. But now in private practice, the majority, I'm gonna say, like, outside of one, like 90% of my clients are Black. And that's been really important to me from the jump, to be able to treat my people and heal my people and work with my people, because there is just a level of understanding that as a Black clinician, especially like growing up in Chicago, that I have, that I know a lot of therapists don't. And so I feel like we need more spaces with people that look like us. And that's just
Yeah.
across careers. Like, we need people who kind of have our best interests at heart, who kind of just understand some of the struggles, and even not necessarily struggles, but some of the commonalities. Like, when you get on Twitter, there's a bunch of people talking about a lot of common Black experiences that are like, damn, we all live the same life. And it's nice to have that in a therapy room, because it allows you to be more vulnerable. It allows you to feel good.
So what the does good mental health exist, and what does that look like?
Good mental health, I would say, probably just looks like being very self-aware, and being prepared to make change when necessary. So, I think a lot of people lack a certain self awareness to be able to get the results out of life that they want, and don't really have an understanding of how their mental and their emotional shapes certain experiences. Something that I talk to clients about all the time is just like very, very small and simple things that kind of shift the way we think, and that also shifts our behavior. So it's like, if I wake up every day, and excuse my language, and I say like, oh, today gonna be a shitty day, I hate my job, it's gonna be a shitty day,
Yeah.
versus being able to shift that mindset and wake up and say, like, best position, but I'm grateful, I'm alive, I'm happy to be able to go and have an opportunity to like support myself. Today is gonna be a good day. So even just in small changes, like, that's how we end up shifting our mental health to be in a better space. But that doesn't exempt us from struggles, right? That doesn't exempt us from having a bad day. So mental health is just so broad, where there are so many different components that go into us having positive experiences, basically, versus
Mhm.
or negative, or just overly focusing on the negative in our life versus the positive.
Right.
Um, but just being able to implement things in your day-to-day life and learn new coping skills, new thinking strategies, it makes all the world of difference. And so good mental health really just comes from a place of awareness of like, all right, this is my pile of stuff. This is how I'm going to work through that stuff. This is how I'm going to make sure I don't project that stuff onto other people. Um,
Right.
and also aware of how you interact with others and how the world interacts with you. Like, I could be having a good day. I managed to run into a family member I can't stand. Now the rest of my day is ruined. Okay, so you gonna let your days be ruined every time you have this interaction, or are you gonna do something
Mhm.
about it? Are you gonna shift it? Are you gonna set boundaries? So
Mhm.
kind of just, again, like, it all goes back to awareness of what's going on and how it affects you, and how you can work and do certain things to just have, like I said, more positive experiences to
Yeah.
experience.
So, what do you think is keeping people from going to therapy? Like, what are some of the stigmas that come with that?
Specifically in the Black community, you crazy, or God will heal all. We've leaned on religion for a very long time, and as a person who is definitely spiritual and aligns herself with God, I think that there is both to exist, but for so long,
Mhm.
it wasn't explained to us in that way. And we have to, I also like to bring up the fact that we have to remember the origin of therapy, which was back in the day, a lot of this stuff was being written and implemented by white men. It
Yeah.
created, or these strategies to help us be in a better space mentally and emotionally, it wasn't created for us. You know what I mean? So we've had pioneers along the way who have created African American psychology and all of these different, holistic approaches to being able to live better lives mentally and emotionally and spiritually. And so a lot of the stigma comes from so far long ago, where when you really watch like old movies and stuff about like insane asylums and stuff, like that stuff used to really exist. You know what I mean? And
Oh
it was
wow, yeah.
the white people, who knows what they was doing to us. So I think
Hmm.
in general it kind of just aligns, the stigma aligns itself with the issue that a lot of Black people have with the medical industry in general, which is that there's a lack of trust, right?
Yeah.
There is a lack of trust with medical doctors, and we see that now with like the COVID vaccine, right? Like
Hmm.
a lot of the Black community is kind of torn on which side that they fall on, because
Right.
there is a huge mistrust of the medical industry, and so therapy and psychology has kind of been aligned with that, which is why like years and decades and centuries later we're still in a place where we're just now breaking out and normalizing this, because number one, we have more knowledge and experience and people in the field that look like us, that can
Yeah.
understand it from a different point of view, that we can trust has our best interest in mind.
Right.
um, Versus like I said before, where that wasn't the case.
Yeah. And like too, I remember like when I was younger and like I was a kid, I got bullied and stuff like that. And was like, should she go to therapy? And with learning the language, like in the beginning, when I asked like what's the difference in learning the language of it, automatically assume that therapy means that you're gonna get put on medication.
Vacation, that's another big one.
And it's like that's not the case. Like it's going to go talk. And then I even get like what do I need to talk to a therapist for? But I'm like, you don't know what mental space your peers are in,
Mm-hmm.
to want to, vent to them. Like having a therapist means that like you're getting unbiased, like they just know you. Like they don't know nobody else that
Mm-hmm.
to have a bias. Like it's a free space, a safe space, and people don't have that, and then it does, just with I haven't been to therapy and I'm working on getting there. I want my whole family, I want everybody to go because everybody needs that outlet. And I think like it's super, super, super great because like you're doing the work and the people that are doing the work don't always like sometimes like it feels like it just keeps going because like it's a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so like I commend you and like thank you so much just for the stuff that you do and that you contribute to society because we need people that do what you do.
Thank you. Yeah. And I hear a lot of what you talk about, like just this idea that how can a stranger help you? But it's like when you go get a new doctor, you don't question his or her degree or their knowledge, right? You trust that you're going
Mm-hmm.
to see a doctor and they're gonna help you. And that's kind of how, therapy is. I've even had clients who, when I first really got in the field, I was young and I look young. So I've
Mm-hmm.
worked with like older clients in different spaces, in mental health spaces, or substance abuse spaces, and they're like, what can she teach me? Like, what do you know? Like, you ain't lived half the life that I've lived. And it's like, yes, experience is one hell of a teacher, but also I went to school for this. You know what
Right.
I'm not just out here listening and giving advice. Like
Yeah.
a background and being able to help people work through
Mm-hmm.
mental health stress and issues. And so sometimes that's the unfortunate part about the mental health industry, is we don't always get the same respect as doctors do. Because even with the medication situation, it's like everybody is very, oh, I don't want to be on medication, which I
Mm-hmm.
understand, right? But
Right.
also when people have cancer or diabetes, we don't
Right.
tell them not to take medication, right? We
Right.
encourage them to do whatever they need to do for their health. And sometimes they're in. it's proven that mental health issues such as anxiety or depression, there is an absence of a neurotransmitter called dopamine, which is our happy emotion, which helps us feel good. And if your body is just not emitting enough of that, then yes, there may come a conversation where maybe you should consider it.
Right.
But that's, of course, a result at the end
Right. That's
of
at the discretion of you and your doctor.
Right, right, exactly. And so, again, I'm very big on removing the stigma around psychiatric meds because I feel like it's misconstrued and it isn't treated like just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not a problem or that it isn't
Right.
in your body.
Right. Because there is that stigma around that too on taking medication. Because that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing.
Right.
Like you said, like we take pain medication all day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not taking away the pain. It's suppressing whatever.
Just trying to help you
Yeah.
feel better, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really important to emphasize. It's like you don't walk into a therapist's office and they be like, okay, so because like I said, most of the time we can't even prescribe medication. So it's not until like I really get a sense of you and we've been working together where I may suggest that you go consult your primary care doctor or I give you a psychiatrist referral because those are the people that can give it to you. I can't.
Right. So they might not have to go past you.
Right.
You
I'm
don't
at
even know.
even in my
And I almost forgot. You wrote a book. You just released a book.
I did just release a book.
Yes. So just tell us a little bit about that, where we can find it and stuff like that.
Okay, so the name of my book is The Things I Wish I Knew, and it is a millennial's guide to learning the emotional and mental concepts the system and our parents didn't teach us. And it's really just a compilation of what I believe concepts in regard to our emotions. I feel like the older I've gotten, the more I've been on social media, the more spaces I've realized there was a gap in psycho, and so books are my means of trying to meet that gap. Can't afford therapy or are still skeptical, right? Like book and you can pretty much learn so much of what I teach and work with clients on. And then I also, inserted some of my own personal struggles and stories of I've navigated certain things in regards to these concepts. And it really just came from a place where I was working, like I said, at this predominantly white treatment center. And I'm like doing all of these groups because a lot of these treatment centers, there's a bunch of groups. You're doing groups out. I'm doing all these groups and we're talking about mood, talking about relationship dynamics, about trauma. And I'm like, people shouldn't have to come to treatment to get this. And so
Right.
I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna take all this material, all this stuff that I'm learning in these first few years of me really being out of grad school and my own experiences, and I'm gonna put it in a book. And so that's what I did, and I'm really excited about it. I'm really excited to give something. I call this my post. I don't. But I did say, like, I was like, I got to do this one thing to leave behind for generations to come because,
Yes.
like you said earlier, there were things that you wish you had known or had been exposed to. And I felt the same way. So I'm like, what better way than to kind of leave this mark and this resource for people to come to be able to not have to just learn about this from social media or any
Right.
from the mouth of an actual therapist. So the book can be found via my website. It's www.bethechangeTS.org. The link is also in my Instagram bio. And yeah, I'm like I said, it's nice that people are buying it, but I'm more excited for people. I'm ready to start getting feedback and reviews and really knowing what people took from it.
I'm gonna order mine right when we get off of here.
Okay.
So
Appreciate
yes. Thank you so much. I like to keep the conversations quick because I don't want to overload anyone with too much information. Keep them coming back.
it. Hmm.
So August 11th, 8:30, same time. We will be doing this again. Make sure you follow Brittany Rogers on Instagram. Check out her website, get her book, and thank you again. And I'll see you next week.
Yes, thanks so much, Jazz. I'll see you.
See you. Have a good night.
You too.